Thank you, sir.
Good, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, good morning, everyone. I just want to talk about electronic delegations. We do have 2 delegations today. And we also know that if someone is watching, the public may submit comments regarding agenda matters via clerks at Richmond Hill. Comments will be provided to all members of council and considered to be information noted in the public record. So with that, I would ask everyone to please stand for the national anthem. Thank you. Any council announcements, members of council? I'm not seeing any at this time. All right, introduction of an energy emergency, time-sensitive matters. Council, see any?
Oh, Mr. Mayor, I'm sorry. I did want to make an announcement.
Okay, go ahead.
Councilor DePaula. Yeah, I just want to say at the last regional council meeting, we agreed to adopt a memorandum of understanding with the province of Ontario to build the Yonge subway line. It's a big step in the long history of getting that vital transportation to Richmond Hill. And this essentially starts the process, and we're very excited about partnering with the province to get this built. Thank you.
No, thank you. It was a thumbs up day for sure. All right. No introduction of emergency time-sensitive matters. Not seeing any there. A motion to adopt the agenda. The agenda, as I will say, has 3 sets of previous council minutes, 10 items, 2 delegations, and a member's motion, and 2 bylaws. So could I have a mover and a seconder for that? Councillor Silovitz, second please. Councillor West. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. The motion is carried. Adoption of the agenda. Is there any disclosure of pecuniary interest, general nature thereof, of any matters before us? Members of council, seeing none. Mr. Clerk, we're there. We now move on to the adoption of previous council minutes. There are 3 of them, and I'll ask a mover and a seconder for all 3. One being council public meeting C1820 on May 20th, council meeting C20 on May 27th, and special meeting of council on the 27th. Can I have a mover and seconder for those three motions? Sorry, Councilor Silvers, Councilor West. Any comments? Probably not. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Identification of items requiring separate discussion. We have got two delegations, 12.7 and 12.4. Is there any other items? Yes, sorry, Councilor West. I've got my head down, sorry.
No, it's okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wouldn't mind pulling a 12.5. I don't have any specific questions about that, but I would. I think it's a very good news story, and I'd like to be able to have an opportunity just to discuss that very briefly.
Okay, Councilor Chan.
Yes, I'd like to pull 12.6 regarding this Zero Bayview Avenue proposed development.
Okay, 12.6.
Thank you.
Any others? Sorry, Councilor DePaula. Or sorry, Councilor Pirelli. Because I have to get
Close enough.
big square in there now.
We will be speaking to the member motion that has been presented for today. There's no need to pull that. Is that correct, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, that's true.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah, the member motion that we have, yes, it's there. Okay, anything else? Seeing none. Can I get a motion for the rest of the, have we done that? No, we need to approve, right?
Correct, Mr. Mayor, and the bylaws
Remaining.
could go on consent. as
And the
well.
bylaws, okay. Then a motion, mover and seconder for those items and the two bylaws, please. Councilor Chan, seconder, Councilor Silvitz. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Okay, so we're moving on down. Okay, our next item, I'm just trying to figure out where we are. I've got two sheets here. That's what's throwing me off. The delegations. So Mr. Robert Walters, Weston Consulting regarding zoning bylaw, item 1217.
Good morning, Your Worship. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I am Robert Walters. I'm an associate with Weston Consulting and the agent and planning consultant for Devon Lane Construction Limited, which deals with the report on item 12.7. I'd just like to inform that we reviewed the report's recommendations and its content, and we agree with them. There are some minor amendments that need to be made to the draft bylaw in Appendix B because the draft plan that we have shares lots with Parkgate to the south, and they have approved zoning. So that zoning needs to match, and we believe we can work with staff under recommendation A2 in order to address those issues. I'd just like to say that these applications were first filed in 2002, and we've had to deal with a number of challenges, which include approval of the provincial Greenbelt Plan and the Oak Ridges Moraine Plan, as well as conformity with the town's North Leslie secondary plan and the associated MESP, and resolve a host of environmental issues. And we certainly like to thank staff for their assistance and in bringing this report forward. That concludes my remarks, Your Worship. Thank you.
Thank you. So we'll bring forward 12.7. So mover and a seconder for that. Thank you, Councilor Liu. Seconder, please. For that item. Councilor Silvitz. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. Thank you very much. Our next item is 11.2, Delegate Sarah Matthew with regard to age-friendly communities. Item 12.4. There's Matthew. Go ahead. Ms. Matthew, go ahead. I don't think she's on. She's not there.
Mr. Mayor, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Thank
Oh,
you.
good. Okay. Basically, I sent the, based on Councillor Chan's suggestion, I sent a few requests yesterday via email regarding how to make Richmond Hill senior friendly. I don't know if I have to go through those again. A few things I will quickly say. Installing speed bumps in some of the major routes that people use to cut across between Bayview and Highway 7. I'm sure there are other areas like this in Richmond Hill as well. Because I live near Adrian Clarkson School, I have noticed this, and one of my neighbors nearly got killed the other day. Somebody is without even taking care of the stop sign. They just went from Queen's College to Castle Ridge. And the second one is improving home care. Instead of giving money to long-term care, how can we support seniors to stay in their own homes? Then we need home care, nurses or personal care workers coming home to help the senior. The next one is to help seniors to make their two-story homes. Majority of the homes in Richmond Hill are two-story. How do we make it senior friendly? If city can recommend province or city can provide grants to make it senior friendly, basically a 3-piece on the main floor or a chair lift and things like that. The next one is automatic doors on city buildings, whether it's a recreational center or the city administration building, we need automatic doors so seniors don't have to use their hands, or even if they are in wheelchair, they can simply, touch with the elbow or something and get in. Yeah, these were the things I already sent it yesterday via email, and I just wanted to get your feedback. And this is what I had to say. Thank you all for listening. This is the first time I am attending a council meeting. It's unfortunate that it happened to be via Zoom, which is creating more difficulty for me, but I'm trying to manage.
No, thank you. Councillor Chan, you wish to wrap up?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you, first of all, to the delegate. Also, we have a number of written comments, and as I understand it, since the cutoff of noon yesterday, there have been more comments coming in. So first of all, I want to actually congratulate all my colleagues, because it's almost a year ago, on June 25th, 2019, then council adopted unanimously on a motion I put forward at the time to look at the feasibility of developing this age-friendly community strategy in our beautiful city, Richmond Hill, and report back with the within the first quarter of 2020, and which they did, and with the steps to establish a senior advisory committee. Obviously, the whole idea is to involve active engagement of older adults. As we are now still in the COVID pandemic and this public health crisis, and it's really the time to really focus on, particularly even based on the 2016 census, is almost about 28% of our population are seniors, and we all know the trend is getting a growing and population in Richmond Hill. So I think it's time, based on particularly good report that our staff have done, and also if in Richmond Hill we have a good foundation. The staff have attached also, we have, unlike other municipalities which mentioned in the report, we are a step ahead in the sense that we have established an old adult strategy, particularly on recreational kind of programs. But this concept, an idea of age-friendly communities is more than just recreation. So I want to thank the staff, because I have ongoing facility discussion with Director Jocelyn and was a very supportive idea. And the whole understanding I have is that the staff did the looking around and come to council, and however it's for council to exercise leadership as a policy that we are committed to really providing and promoting active living for all seniors. And more than ever, this is the time to act, particularly in the Seniors Month in Ontario. So in this particular case, I am putting forward a motion that to say, Mr. Kirk, I don't know, you might have the wording. A is to receive this report with thanks to staff for what they have done, and B, for the city endorse and support the development, because we are not there yet, but to support the development of an age-friendly community plan. The idea is to enhance the city's capacity, and this go beyond the recreation to better guide future decisions on seniors' policies, practices, services, programs, and amenities to support seniors and their family and caretakers. With the next step, staff have identified on page 10 on the report, and then age-friendly community plan, of course, have to consider within the whole context of strategic plan coming up as one of the priorities. So I think this is an opportunity for the city of Richmond Hill to show leadership, to show a commitment to our aging population, is enabling on seniors and engaging them in an active, meaningful way. And I stress this is the opportunity for us to really demonstrate Richmond Hill is not only a great place for families of all ages to grow, is also that we are being responsive and taking a commitment and leadership position to not only welcome, to make active senior living a priority in the city of Richmond Hill. And it's just really timely now. We're doing this in the month of June, in the Seniors Month for Ontario. So I would respectfully ask my colleagues, like what they did in the June of last year, to embrace and support this particular development in the coming months and year. Thank you.
I'll second that.
All right, we have a seconder. Now, the motion before us now moved in second. So B is the addition, right? A was the original motion. I'm just trying to get my things. That's the only difference we've made. However, I do have speakers. Councilor Barros.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I think that this is, I think it's a good initiative. I think that when we actually go and start looking at how we do business here in the city, we're already a very friendly community for not just seniors, but for those with disabilities, for those of youth. We tend to look after all of our residents in an equitable manner. The only issue I have at this point in time, Mr. Mayor, is that we're preconceiving what the strategic plan is already going to look like. So at this point, Mr. Mayor, I'd like to move a referral, that this be referred to staff and brought back during the strategic plan discussions, so that we can then, with a number of other items, we can look at all the options in front of us and decide how we want to put our strategic plan together. Much the same as we've been doing with our budget process, that when we come across things like this, they're going to be a budgetary item, we move them forward to the budget process, and we then take a look at them in context with all of the other demands and ways that we want to go. So that's my my motion at this point, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a seconder? We move this on. Councilor Crowley.
May I speak, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to second this motion. We received an email from Mrs. Smith, I believe the name was, I don't have it in front of me. The delegates' concerns were are we going to have a meaningful action behind this committee? And you saw the delegate that spoke here today spoke about some of the things that might be considered. All of those things require some kind of budgetary concern. So I think the motion is important, that we do it and we do it right. I would also add, not officially, but I would add that maybe staff reach out to the two delegates today, both the spoken one and the written one, ask them if they would like to be engaged. Clearly, they've shown an interest in this and would probably be instrumental in being on part of one of those committees. So I'm happy to second the motion, Mr. Mayor. I think that's where it belongs, back at staff, and make sure we bring it back with the strategic plan. Those are my comments. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you. Any other comments? Councillor West and Councillor Munch, go ahead.
Thank you. I won't be able to support the referral or deferral, whatever we're doing here. I think I understand the rationale behind it, but the thing is that the age-friendly motion and the staff report is very clear on a number of the different items that would be an outcome of this particular action if we chose to go ahead and do it. I agree that there will be a budget implication to this, and there may be other budget implications to any of the actions that come out of the actual task force and plan. But I think this is a good opportunity to get started on this. And while I do agree that, we are a community that is friendly to a number of different demographics and so on, I think that we also can do better. I've received numerous emails from people who are older adults in the time that I've been on council. And, I think that if you drill down into some of the concerns that I've heard, there are things that I think that they're identifying from their perspective that really could be improved. And I think a lot of them are not really things that are going to cost us a lot of money. Some might be, but I think that the ability for us to harvest a bunch of low-hanging fruit quickly, and then perhaps we can decide what we do over a longer term is fine. But essentially, the problem with deferring this or moving this is that Councillor Chan's motion is in a lot of ways moving it to the strategic plan. And then we as a council can decide what we do and how we integrate that into the strategic plan. I don't see any value in deferring it and deferring any consideration in preparation of doing the strategic plan. I think it would be better if we got on with it. So I would like to see us actually pass this motion.
Point of order,
not
Mr.
vote
Mayor.
for the referral. So thank you very much for your comments, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead, Councillor Crowley.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just want to set the record straight. The Councillor West has been speaking to a deferral. The motion before us is a referral.
Okay.
I just want to set the record straight so no one is voting on the wrong thing. Thank you.
It's in the on the motion on the screen. Councillor Punch, and then Councillor Sullivan. You got it for yourself. Unmute.
I'm
There you
sorry.
go.
Oh, excuse me. Thank you for the report. Good point of view. What's really striking is on page 7 and page 8, for those that have a chance to look at that now, if you haven't seen it review, is if you look at the demographic change of what's coming, and we all know the baby boom generation, of which I'm part, will be using its change as to how we're going forward. We really need to look at everything that we're doing as an organization going forward. And I think it's part of our strategic plan is where this needs to be. And this has to be part of our budget process and a realigning as to how we do and don't do things. So I applaud the referral back to staff, that we make a wholesome approach, not just an individual point, and see how this as an organization is going to make seniors a priority and how we do, walkable, livable communities. If you look what's happening at 16th and Yonge last week, for example, the various things that we look at and how the demographic is changing. And in my ward, who has a lot of, housing affordability with a disproportionate amount of seniors people, really see it, how that's going to be done. So I applaud the motion. And I think we really do need to have a much more visionary, wholesome discussion with council, as well as I look forward to the staff report and where we're going to engage for it. This isn't simply a motion of let's talk about it, move something forward. This is a wholesome structural change. When you look at the, look at the tripling of the people over the age of 70 and 75. It's going to take us a long time when we look at the bocce ball and other things that we're doing that are more senior friendly. These are all programs that we need to now start look at where we're going to go. And with the expansion of Richmond Green and our priorities and where we're going and how we're changing our landscape as per the 2019 May Watson report, we really do need to start looking at these types of things. Otherwise, those seniors will be left behind. We will have problems addressing some of these areas. So I applaud the motion and I'll be supporting it. And I hope the rest of you do as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Silvitz.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and my thanks to staff for bringing this forward. I'm not going to support this referral because I believe the original motion basically says this and stands alone. One thing I would ask, please, is that as the chair of the Accessibility Advisory Committee, that staff, sorry, I'm thinking of the best word here, that staff please speak with myself as the chair and also speak with the committee. It would be nice to have something presented to the committee for their input as well. The Accessibility Advisory Committee is, while not specifically senior, it is without any doubt, their views are very important as to how we move forward on this. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, this is Councillor Chen. You're not seeing me, but I'd like to speak when the time comes.
I'm seeing you. Okay, there's no other speakers. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yes, I can appreciate what the movers and seconders will refer motion. However, I honestly do not feel it's necessary because I have put a lot of thought on when putting in the option, not the option, yes, the part B in my motion in front of you, because it's already mentioned there that we are actually only asking our council make a commitment in terms of moving forward. But I did turn my mind that potentially there might be budgetary implications, and these need to be, as some other colleagues saying, wholesomely within the whole city. So that's why I specifically mentioned that this particular age-friendly community plan would have to be included in one of the priorities in review of the whole city strategic plan in upcoming year. So I honestly feel that my part B present is already touching on the perhaps that thinking of for purposes. So this is and in the dialogue, engaging staff and working on this a year ago on June 25th, 2019. And I envision that staff would be bringing back as what the intent referral motion is, more fulsome kind of looking at this whole issue of strategic plan. So I feel we need to have a referral motion, but ask my colleague that in fact is in part B of the motion I put forward. So in the end, I acknowledge that there are other issues to look at, but there's no need for referral. In particularly, I want to stress that we already have established partners that might help that in terms of concern about budgetary things. We have a Care First Seniors and Community Services Association already in partnership with the city in delivering some programs, and they are actually participating in the last session when this motion, when the formal motion was debated. And also we have a leading serving the seniors community in York region, community and home to senior. They're also in a position to be in partners with us to do many things and learning from other municipal work. And building on our foundation of the OH strategy, Richmond Hill is really in a position to take a leadership position. We're asking, or I'm asking, City of Richmond Hill proudly takes the leadership role, and leadership takes courage. And this will be all at within the strategic plan. So in my humble opinion, there's no need for referral. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for having me the chance to share my thoughts.
Okay, I would say that somehow your voice is breaking up, so I don't know whether that's your email or what it is.
Internet connection, Mr. Mayor.
Internet connection, but it came on at the end. That's okay. All right. I'm of the same kind of opinion. I don't know why we want to refer this when we seem to have everything all in place, and we can add those to people that were involved. I don't see that there's any reason not to move forward and work through it. It's going to give the same end as far as I'm concerned. So that's just my humble opinion. And I'll go back to the mover. Councilor Barros, I have you, sir. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And through you to the interim city manager, I've got a question. The recommendation that came to us from staff was that we received the report and then we move on. So I'm curious, through you, Mr. Mayor, why did staff not make this recommendation to, in advance of the budget and in advance of the strategic plan, ask us to start this process now? Through you, Mr. Mayor.
Ms. Dempster?
Through Mr. Mayor, I believe you said you said it already as to why staff are not recommending this in isolation. I think this is an excellent initiative. It's not that we do not support this initiative, but for me, we have limited resources that are exhausted, frankly, on dealing with all the COVID-19 items, as well as doing our regular course of business. And we're focused on reopening. So for us to look at this, the next 2 years are really unknown right now for us as a city on what we're going to be experiencing, what we need to address. And to look at this in isolation of the 2-year strategic plan that we're going to be doing with council to ensure that we address all of your council's priorities of the next 2 years just seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. My recommendation would be that we go through the planning exercise for the strategic plan. And if this is a priority when you're looking at the city as a whole and everything we do and everything you want to accomplish, if this becomes a priority, then we will dedicate resources to getting it done. But right now, our resources are spread already thin. So that I do believe this is a great initiative, but in isolation, I think council should have the benefit of having everything else in front of them.
Thank you, Ms. Dempster. Mr. Mayor, I don't think anyone has any doubt that this is a good initiative. I think the concern we have is, as Ms. Dempster said, putting the cart before the horse before the cart, the cart before the horse, sorry. So my referral stands. I would like to be able to consider this in a holistic approach with all the other impacts we're going to be seeing, and I trust staff that they know what they're currently up against, or else they would have brought this as it sits right away. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, Councilor Crowley, did you wish to speak also? I saw your hand.
Thank you for recognizing me, Mr. Mayor. No, I was just basically going to say exactly what our city manager was going to say. So it's already been said. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
All right.
Mr. Mayor, may I add one comment, please?
Certainly.
Thank you. So I understand what the city manager had said, and I was aware of that actually going into this conversation. So this is not surprising. I guess the question that I would be asking myself, and again, why I wouldn't be supporting not moving ahead with this in some reasonable time frame, is that it's not an all or nothing proposition. I mean, this is something that we could get started on either in a larger way or a smaller way, and we could start on that anytime. And all of this will have to do with all of the constraints that we always deal with whenever council provides a visionary direction to move forward on. If this is something that is important to council, then we'll find the way to move forward with it. And I would absolutely respect the limitations that we have as an organization to do more than we're able to do. And I realize that we absolutely have our hands full right now, but I actually think that moving forward on this in a reasonable way is an opportunity that when we come out of this pandemic, we are well positioned to be better and stronger than we were before. And we've had many conversations over the last little while about how staff is preparing us to be better than we were. Recover to thrive, I think, was the presentation we had the other day. If we come out of this pandemic and we've done as much as possible of the work that would create a more age-friendly community, when we come out of the other end of this, we're going to be a stronger community as a result. So I'm not dictating the pace that we move forward on this. That obviously is up to the limitations that staff has, and I totally respect that. But what I am saying is that I think we need to get started. And this referral that we're talking about here seems like it's a delay tactic, and I really don't think that it actually adds any particular value. I mean,
point of order,
get started right now.
Point of order.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
To speak.
Point of order, Mr. Mayor.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Mayor, when someone says point of order, the speaker should stop speaking.
Appreciate
that. The chair should recognize the point of order. That was a very offensive comment made by Councillor West, and I demand an apology.
Being what, sir?
This is a delay tactic. This is no tactic, Mr. Mayor. It's offensive to the members who moved the motion, seconded it, supported, and our staff who also are against the motion before this referral motion. That was offensive, and it needs to be dealt with right now, Mr. Mayor.
I will say, Councillor West, you did not stop talking. And I would appreciate when someone does refer to that, I would ask that you do. And I don't know that what you said was proper, actually, quite frankly, as you ended it that way.
It is my impression and my opinion, Mr. Mayor, that the motion before us, with all due respect, does not add any value to what Councillor Chan's motion is. Okay. I think it has the effect of delaying the decision, but it doesn't add value to it. That is, if that helps to be clarified.
Sorry, hang on. Councillor, please, I know you can't just start another conversation through this process. That's what I'm trying to say. So put them on again. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask for a recorded vote.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, I would like to speak. It's Councillor Liu. Yes. Thank you for the opportunity. I've been listening on carefully on both sides of the arguments, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to staff, can you remind me about the timeline of the strategic plan 2021 to 22, please?
Mr. Mayor, to the councillor, this is a different exercise than the normal strategic planning where we go in and do 4 years. We're doing 2 to really take into consideration our current situation and the unknowns coming forward. This is going to be quite a rapid process. We're not going to be doing it. We're not going to be taking the amount of time that it normally takes because we want to be ready for 2021. So right now we're developing the terms of reference, and we're going to be engaging a consultant. And within my plan is for it to be ready by October, November this year so that we can incorporate it in our 2021 planning process for operations. So it's going to be a quick exercise. I don't see any issue with moving this. The only piece of this where I said, you know, we're already pre-anticipating what this is going to be, is saying that it be one of the priorities. I think council as a whole needs to work together with the consultant on what you see the priorities being as the next 2 years, instead of them coming piecemeal one at a time. I think it's a great initiative. I just think council should consider it as part of the bigger picture.
Thank you. And I understand that, but when I look at the page 10 of the report, and it's not all about budgetary issues. And I think some of the steps we should be moving ahead. And, you know, when I look at Councillor Chan's motion, is just said is wanted to be one of the priorities in the review of the strategic plan. And as you said, is obviously one of our priorities. So I don't have any problems supporting the original motion. So thank you, Mr. Mayor, for the opportunity to speak.
Okay. We now have the motion to refer before us. We've been asked for a call for.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak on the second round.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think the issue that needs to be enforced, Mr. Mayor, and reinforced is that we are asking staff to endorse the development of a plan. And we're going to ask them to put resources behind the creation of this plan without having the understanding of how much resources financially and staff-wise we have to put towards this. It's going to be an effort really in futility, because it's going to have to be all redone when we go through the strategic plan 2021-22. It's not that we voted for this referral motion because we didn't want to get started on the program, is that we have staff resources that are unavailable at this time to create a wholesome program that's going to be meaningful to the seniors. Everything else that we can and would like to do, and Councillor Chan can engage the seniors community on his own, as we all can, and come up with all kinds of suggestions and ways to enhance their lives without funding priorities. That can be done every day. We don't need staff to tell us that. The reason we need staff in this regard is so that those ideas that were mentioned by the delegate today, chair lifts, help for doorways that can open, and so on and so forth, these all require funding, and a lot of funding, I may add. And they may be a priority for this council. But to have the staff come up with a plan, start working now, take their valuable resources, working on this plan for the next 3, 4, 5, 6 months, saying that the plan is a priority when they don't know what kind of funding is going to be available. What kind of plan are they really creating? So I think it's just really a little bit too soon to do this. And I think it's not the best use of our funding at this time. And I don't believe it's going to create the best outcome for our seniors. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. We are now going to call the question on the motion to refer. Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Voting on the motion to refer, Councillor Chan.
No.
Regional and Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes.
Councillor Silovitz.
No.
Councillor Barrows.
Yes.
Councillor Munch.
Yes.
Mayor Barrow.
Yes.
Councillor West.
No.
Councillor Liu.
No.
Regional and Local Councillor DePaulo.
Yes.
Motion to refer carries.
Okay. We are now moving to other matters. We have 12.5 on the environment strategy update, greening the hill. Councillor West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I wanted to pull this just because I think it is a very good news story, and I appreciate this. And I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of our staff who are doing all of the work to implement this, the Greening the Hill strategy. And this report is really about a report on the work that we're doing. So I would again like to just to thank them. I think it is a good news story. I think Richmond Hill, we have a lot of environmental assets that we're stewarding. And I think it's always been a very important part of our responsibility as a community to make sure that we're doing the best that we can for the environment. And I think that this, I look forward to this report every year because it does lay out in specific detail the actual actions that we're taking, or at least some of the bigger ones that are concurrent with the Greening the Hill strategy. So I don't have a lot to say other than that. I am looking forward to doing an update at some point that we're planning on doing that's contained in this report. And I just would draw our attention to anybody that's interested. On page 8, there's a number of different things that are in the pipeline for 2020 that are going to be also hopefully successes that we can report out next year. So thank you to staff, and I'm happy to move the motion to receive the report for information. Thank you.
Okay, Councillor Chan has his hand up before, and then Councillor Burrows, and Councillor Sullivan. Sorry, go ahead, Councillor Chan.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did not hear whether Councillor West is moving a motion or not. But if he did, then I'd like to second the motion. I also want to say that from my end, I can see the really progress and leadership. This particular city with the able and competent staff advancing in the environment strategy. And I particularly like the colorful infometrics, which I'm holding just now. This is a way to really not just to say thank you, staff, for doing wonderful work, but also to really distribute and share that good messages with our residents and businesses, because they are the ones who also contribute to it. Particularly during this public health crisis time, there's really come into focus and light, and all these environmental concerns or initiatives actually are helping in terms of helping us to continue to stay in a healthy way of life with more greenfield, proper way of planning our parks and other green spaces. And specifically, I want to compliment staff on the number of initiatives. In fact, just early this week, I also received, I assume my colleagues as well, from our environmental staff on councillors. These are the kind of things you might say something about the city's environment initiatives, such as Resilient Richmond Hill, for inclusion in communicating with your award businesses and residents. So I'd like to take this opportunity to say it was a well-done report, and Richmond Hill is actually, in this case, affirming our leadership with our staff and residents and businesses in really greening the hill. So it's not just we talk about it with lip service, we actually walk the talk. I still remember when I first joined the council almost 14 years ago, I was quite impressed. Our environmental engineering session, as I recall, is the first municipal engineering team in Ontario that actually really received this recognition with ISO 14001. So on that particular issue on greening the hill, our community, our future, I'm in it. In fact, my virtual background is green, and I choose it for a reason. So I'm happy to second motion and compliment and thank you, staff. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Barros.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As the councillor with the most amount of green space and the largest footprint on the Oak Ridges Moraine, with a 1,057-acre provincial park in the Oak Ridges area, I was just going to say that I would be happy to second the motion. It is a job done by staff, a well done job, And I just appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
No, thank you very much. Any other comments? Councillor Sullivan.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I'm happy to support this. I just want to also give my thanks to staff. Excellent report. And this together with the agenda item 12.2, the Richmond Hill Urban Forest Management Plan, which was approved on consent before. This truly shows the leadership that our municipality has when it comes to green initiatives. And the Greening the Hill initiative has had excellent successes in the macro and the micro. So thank you very much. And I think that every Richmond Hill resident can be very proud as to the manner in which we as a municipality, this council and our staff focus on green initiatives, ensuring that we are green friendly and have really blazed quite the green trail. So thank you very much. My pleasure to support.
Thank you very much. Any other comments? All those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously. Thank you all. Our next is 12.6. Councillor Chan. Progressive approval of zoning bylaw amendment, etc. Bayview Avenue, 0 Bayview. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. And first of all, I want to thank staff for bringing in the staff report. This particular area, just in the southeast corner of Bayview and 16th Avenue, have been sitting there vacant with just green weeds and whatever for a long time. So it's actually time for an appropriate development, in this case, more than just residential, both commercial component and also residential to be there, which is something that I think that is overall that fits into the whole particular area. So I have no serious issue on concern, but before I move the motion as put it in the report by staff recommendation A, with the sub 1 to 6 as well as B, I do have a few questions seeking clarification from staff to ensure that when we all and council pass this, that is passed for an appropriate particular development, given this is a very, I would say, busy corner at 16th Avenue and Bill Avenue. So, and there's a positive things. First, maybe I should comment that I appreciate the applicant actually taking into consideration of the public's particular adjacent owners' wishes to reduce the number of residential units from 7 to 6, which is a good sign. And they reduce the height of the commercial development from 2 stories to 1 story, cutting down the underground garage, which previously created a bit of issue. So my question specifically for staff is that specifically, I'd like to get clarification from our planning staff on the issue that particularly saying a number of places that this is only a draft zoning bylaw, particularly on page 11 and the 4th bullet. The zoning bylaw will be brought forward for council's approval now. So my question through Mr. Mayor to staff. So the draft zoning bylaw included in this report is not the final. Council will still have opportunity to look at the finalized, so to speak, zoning bylaw. Is that correct?
Mr. Galanis, go ahead, sir.
Through you, Mayor Barrow, that the council, what is before council today is really a request for draft approval of the subdivision and a request for comments on the site plan. We are still working with the applicant to finalize the development, and the bylaw is a draft, and it will be coming back to council for approval.
So thank you for the answer. So if I understand correctly, it will come back to council again with the finalized zoning bylaw subject to the site plan is satisfactory to the assessment of the staff. Correct?
Through you, Mayor Barrow, that is correct.
That is
Thank
correct.
you.
That's what he said.
Thank you. And then moving on, page 10 of the staff report. It's brought up about the sanitary sewage capacity, because as I understand the area at the end of the 016th, there has been an ongoing issue on grading, on the drainage, and also the sewage capacity. So to what extent that if I live in the area, that staff can assure us that yes, with the additional of the 6 residential properties and commercial properties, that won't create problem or flooding in my basement. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to the planners.
Through you, Mayor Barrow, part of the review obviously includes the detailed engineering plans, and our development engineering staff would have looked at those details and are in the process of finalizing them. So they will look at the overall area, not just the site, and any issues that are in the area would have to be addressed. But I certainly can take the comment back to our development engineering group to make sure that they focus on that issue.
Okay, thank you. And specifically on the sewage capacity issue, actually it was in the technical part on the appendix D, which is in the report as well. In the end, this sewage capacity issue, not only with the public, meaning the city, would have to give easement and so on, but also the next door commercial property owner at the corner, right at the corner of 16 and Bayview, would have to be agreeable to have this particular development proposal to be finalized. So it's just a what if, because the city, we can, with the professional staff and assessment, and if they see it as a satisfactory, meeting all the criteria, we can do it. But it's beyond the hands of the city. So I'm wondering, was that thoughts given, contemplated, what if the next door neighbor are saying no to this particular proposed development in terms of the sewage capacity and the easement situation? Again, to the planners, through Mr. Mayor.
Through you, Mayor Barrow, yes, that is an issue that the applicant is aware of. Obviously, there have been discussions with the abutting property owner. My understanding is those discussions are ongoing, and they do need to fulfill that requirement in order for the development proposal to move forward.
Okay, thank you. I just want to raise those issues and concerns, not only from the neighboring residential owners, but also next door commercial property owner, to ensure the sewage capacity and those easement, and also the traffic, which I understand has been improvement, that moving the entry on 16th Avenue closer to the intersection. So as I said, Mr. Mayor, I seek all those clarification and raise the issues still need to be outstanding to be looked at. And I'm happy to move the recommendation, as I mentioned, A and B, as in the staff report. Thank you for your time, and thank you, staff, for assessment. And I think there will be a welcoming change addition to that busy corner of Bay 16. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Pirelli.
And Mr. Mayor, can we see what the motion is on the screen?
Okay.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, to Mr. Galanis, am I understanding that we're not approving the zoning bylaw amendment and draft plan of subdivision today?
Through you, Mayor Barrow, the recommendation is that the application, actually the plan of subdivision, be draft approved. The only thing we're holding back on is the final form of the zoning bylaw. We're seeking comments on the site plan from council, and then we would move to finalize the bylaw and bring it back before council in it just as a bylaw itself, not a further report.
So it's a conditional zoning bylaw amendment.
Through you, Mayor Barrow, yeah, in a sense, yes. We still have a couple of things to finalize on the site plan, and we may have to tweak the bylaw. That's why we're saying that no further notice be required if any minor changes are made.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, is there a seconder for the motion that's up there?
Happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Any other comments? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That carries unanimously, as I can see. Okay. Next.
Members motion, Mr. Mayor.
Members motion, Councillor West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I'm happy to move this members motion. It's essentially the purpose of this motion. It's a fairly simple proclamation, and the purpose of it is to help to educate and involve the public, specifically in monarch butterfly conservation efforts that we're undergoing here in Richmond Hill and other places, of course. But also, I think, it provides an environmental awareness for broader environmental issues as well, which I'm pleased about. I think it's pretty clear, the work that we've done previously with the Mayor's Monarch motion that we all have a part to play in a number of different species preservation, but particularly monarchs. And in actual fact, our individual efforts across North America are starting to make a difference, which I think is great. So essentially the motion asks to declare August the 22nd as Flight of the Monarch Day. The date that is being picked here is significant, I guess, because that's the date where the monarchs start to migrate from places like Canada into the United States and then ultimately to a place in El Rosario, Mexico. So it's kind of the beginning of their journey south. This is the International Flight of the Monarch Day is an initiative that the Toronto Region Conservation Area has asked municipalities to sign on to. There's a number of different opportunities for municipalities and citizens groups and individuals as well to participate in. I have actually spoken to our staff, and they are already planning on a number of different initiatives around that time of year. And I think that this motion, and I've spoken to them about this, would help to focus some of their efforts to be more specific to this type of motion, but also accomplishing the general objectives that they would have been trying to do anyway. So I think it's a benefit for us. And I also think that it is very consistent with the Mayor's Monarch Pledge and also with the Bee City motion that we passed a little while ago. So there is actually an additional whereas in the member motion. If you could put that up on the screen, Mr. Clerk. The whereas didn't make the deadline for submitting this motion, but essentially it speaks about, it's bolded. It speaks about that we'll be asking our staff to help out with doing some of the things that they were going to be doing on that day anyway. I suspect that probably a lot of the activities that will be done during this time will be done virtually, but I think staff has been doing a good job at getting the word out about different things that we can do virtually as opposed to, collectively in a group, but, we'll see how things go, I guess, between now and then. I should also mention, it's my understanding that Markham and Vaughan have both proclaimed this day as well, and they've also proclaimed the Mayor's Monarch Pledge as well, so it would be great for us to be able to join them as well. So those are my comments. Mr. Mayor, I hope to get support for this. I think it's a fairly simple way that we can move forward and add a little bit of education about a species that people really are interested in, and hopefully we can get that done. Thank you.
I'll gladly second.
Okay. Councillor Fry, go ahead.
As the seconder, can I speak first, please?
All right, sorry, that was my mistake.
It's okay.
Catching faces as I go here, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, I'll gladly second this, and I want to thank Councillor West for once again bringing this forward. We've had a number of discussions about this, and it's in keeping with our Mayor's Monarch Pledge, which is so important to the city and Bee City, as Councillor West mentioned. So I look forward to the virtual offerings that will come from staff with regards to, hopefully, if this is approved by council, and lots of things that we'll be able to organize, hopefully in August, and have our residents become a part of. Saving the monarchs and protecting the monarchs has become quite the signature of Richmond Hill. And again, in keeping with our greening initiatives, this is superlative. So thank you very much. And I look forward to moving forward on this. I urge all our members of council to give their green flag to this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crowley, you had your hand up, sir.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Much appreciated. Admittedly, I didn't look into this until early this morning around 5 a.m., Mr. Mayor, and I did a little bit of research. I want to start off by thanking Councillor West for making this motion. Unfortunately, I won't be able to support it as is. Mr. Mayor, I've always believed that if we're going to make a proclamation, the proclamation has to have an action attached to it. It's very important that we just don't make a proclamation and then don't have anything substantive to support that proclamation. If we believe in the whereases that are listed here, then we need to go further, Mr. Mayor. I have an amendment, Mr. Mayor, that I would like to make. I've submitted it to the clerk around 9:30 this morning. I'm not sure if the clerk has received it. Mr. Mayor, through you to the clerk, have you received my amendment?
I have. Just give me a moment and I can print it up on the screen for consideration.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor, as we've heard on other issues today by one of the delegates in the written correspondence, was we have to have some meaningful action behind anything. So I had a conversation this morning with the TRCA representative, Rachel Stewart, I believe her name was. Together we created this amendment. If the clerk could read it out, I would really appreciate it.
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The amendment proposes to add 3 additional whereas clauses as follows. Whereas creating habitat is the single most important thing we can do to support any species at risk. Whereas monarch butterflies are a species at risk in Canada. Research has shown that loss of milkweed in North America is the primary reason for their decline, according to the Norse Lab at the University of Guelph. Milkweed is the obligate host plant for the monarch, the only plant that the caterpillars will feed on, and where the adult butterflies will lay their eggs. An ideal habitat would therefore contain milkweed as well as native nectar plants to sustain adult butterflies throughout the summer, such as black-eyed Susans, New England asters, smooth ox-eye, and lance-leaf coreopus. Whereas a garden of 10 plants would provide a functional habitat for monarchs and should include 4 milkweed plants and a mix of native pollinator plants. These plants survive best if planted in full sun. And then to add the additional therefore clause, therefore being further resolved that $10,000 be set aside from the Council Engagement and Marketing Fund to purchase the above noted plants for the creation of 200 personal habitats consisting of 10 plants each, that will be made available this year to the first 200 residents wishing to create this habitat on their property, the first one being me.
Mr. Mayor, this is my amendment. And I want members of council to know that, of course, the wording here was a joint effort between myself and Rachel Stewart from the TRCA, who's heading this program regarding the monarch butterfly. There's a lot more to learn, but it's my understanding that the plants can be had for approximately $4 a piece. And that's how I came up with the 200 plants, 200 personal habitats consisting of 10 plants, and the math adds up to about $10,000. I really hope that the members of council, I know it's short notice, but sometimes Mr. Mayor, we're forced to make decisions, important decisions like this in a short period of time. I think this will add some meaningful content to the motion, and it will actually have some positive enforcement in the city of Richmond Hill. And I hope every member of council can support my amendment. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay. Is there a seconder amendment? This time, seconder for this amendment? I'm sorry, I don't see any hands. Oh, sorry, I didn't see your hand
I'd
behind.
like to read it for a second.
Pardon?
I just want to read it if I can, please.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to speak to this at the appropriate time.
Yep, thank you. Councillor Liu, you are seconding?
No, I won't. I won't second it, but I would like to speak to it.
I know, I understand that. I'm trying to find out who is seconding.
Oh, I'm sorry, you cut out there. I didn't hear you.
Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to second this motion.
Okay, thank you. All right. All right, now, do you wish to speak? Deputy? Mr. Apollo, do you wish to speak, or are you just seconding him?
No,
You're anybody, for crying out loud. Come on, let's go vote there.
I just wanted to second it. I think it's very important, and I know a lot of work's gone into this. Thank you.
Okay. Then I will go to Councillor West.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have no objection to this, but I guess the only thing I would point out is that the Mayor's Monarch Pledge has been doing exactly what's proposed in this motion for, I can't remember how many years now that it's been there. One of the things, the actionable items in the Mayor's Monarch Pledge was to increase habitat for monarchs. And Councillor Pirelli has discovered something that is very interesting, actually, that's fairly well known, that the monarch butterflies do only eat milkweed. And there's a number of different kinds of milkweed. And that is very, very important for the larval stage to survive. The amount of milkweed in Richmond Hill has definitely been going up every year for a number of reasons, including planting. We've spent a lot of time and effort, both the city of Richmond Hill itself through Healthy Yards and also through the Mill Pond Splash and the TRCA in creating habitat, and both on private property and on public property. So this motion essentially spends $10,000 to continue those efforts. I certainly don't have any problem with that. That sounds great. But I just want to point out that we have also been doing this. This is duplicating the efforts that we are currently undertaking, which is fine. I mean, more is definitely good. One of the important parts that we've done that's made a big difference, I think, is change the way we do our natural area maintenance, and even just things like mowing. If you're mowing areas where there is naturally occurring milkweed, you're taking away habitat. So anyway, I'm happy to support this, but I think I do want to point out that it is a duplication of some of the things that we're already doing. I'm more than happy to talk to Councillor Pirelli at any point if he wants to learn more about this. My family and I have been raising monarchs for many, many years, and I've certainly been very thrilled to be able to learn as much as I have about them. They're a very, very interesting species, and then frankly, it's about as close to a miracle as you can get that a little butterfly like that would get all the way to Mexico. So anyway, happy to support it, and we'll go from there. Thank you.
Okay. I will say, just in my own self, I've belonged to the TRCA for probably 8 years. The last time, so it was 2016, 4 years ago, that we came as Richmond Hill one of the first to sign into the Monarch Pledge process. So it's something that we've been doing, and it's turned out very, very well from a community point of view, and from some education point of view with some young people. And it's always thrilling when somebody sees one. So I agree too that this process is good for our community.
Mr. Mayor, can I just actually add one comment? I forgot. I put it in my notes.
Yes.
I was actually, when I was speaking to Ms. Stewart as well from the TRCA, back when I was formulating this motion, she had actually mentioned about the fact that they have milkweed for sale or available at some point to plant. But she also mentioned at that time that there were possibly some grants available to get this done. So I think it would be more responsible if we could just either add it to the motion as a friendly amendment or speak to staff, but there may be a possibility of having the milkweed that is proposed in this motion paid for out of a grant. And I know that in speaking to our staff before today, I believe that was one of the issues that they were going to be touching base with Ms. Stewart, so that she could, we could be exploring the possibility of getting that paid for through a grant as opposed to our own funds in the city. So I don't know how you want to handle that. I mean, I think if we get a grant, it would be better to do the grant than it would be to set aside our own funds.
I think we can go looking for a grant without putting it in our motion, that's for sure. It's just part of our action. Councilor Brown, sorry, saw your hand again.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I am very well aware of all the initiatives that have been taking place regarding the Monarch butterfly. And I am aware that the TRCA has some funding available for plants. They did have a very extensive program where they were providing planting kits to the schools, but that has kind of not been rolled out as of yet. And I suspect that it will. And yes, of course, our staff, which are very diligent, will take advantage of every and any opportunity to do this. But Mr. Mayor, as the motion clearly states, this is about setting aside the funds for, if the residents of Richmond Hill, and I hope that we do some kind of a social media program to encourage members of Richmond Hill to start these habitats on their personal property so that they can maintain them, so that the population of monarchs will continue to increase as it has over the last few years because of other initiatives that have been initiated. And like I said, Mr. Mayor, I would like to start the first one. I've been working on my personal garden in the last month as an unintended consequence of the COVID pandemic, spending a lot of time at home. And I've set aside now a site for the milkweed and the other pollinating plants, and I'd be happy to look at those butterflies when they start arriving. But I think it's important that we have the money set aside now so that we can start the program immediately. And I don't suspect, Mr. Mayor, that we will get all 200 residents. That would be great. I don't suspect that that will happen right away before August 22nd, but should it happen, at least the funds are available to get the program rolled out. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Those are my comments.
Thank you. So all those in favor with the amendment?
Mr. Mayor, Councilor Chan here. You couldn't see me, I couldn't see you, but I'd like to make a comment.
Looking at you, sir. So I don't know that you can't see me.
Well, I can't see you. You probably can't see me.
So, yes, sir. Is that
okay? Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just for the motion in front of us, I believe Regional Councilor and Deputy Mayor Joe DiPaolo actually seconded because it's not there yet. But I want to first of all say that I appreciate that mover, Regional and Local Council Pirelli. Certainly that, as he said, he did some research on it, and it's evident. The research piece is here, and it really demonstrate that collaboratively we on council we could achieve things not only for the people living in Richmond Hill, but for also the monarch butterflies who might visit our great city from time to time. Now, so I have to say this is it's good that we're doing something tangible as well, not just a declaration. However, I just wonder, is the mover being serious about having the last 5 words in the motion for the council to pass? Just curious. And
Mr. Mayor, happy to respond to that question.
Go ahead. Yes.
Yes, Councillor Chan. I'm very serious. I want to lead by example. I want the residents of Richmond Hill and the members of this council to know that I will take the first step and start the increase of the habitat for the Monarch. And in my brief discussion with Ms. Stewart this morning, it was very interesting because I didn't really understand how significant the pollinating plants are, the pollinating insects, because without them, where's my list here? It's interesting. I don't know if you noticed earlier, I was having my espresso, and espresso is made from coffee. And it turns out that if the pollinating insects were all to disappear, we wouldn't have any fruits, grains, or coffee, potentially even meat. And so I can't go without my espresso. So I may have personal reasons why I want to increase the habitat for the Monarch, but I'm starting to learn more, and I've committed to not only being the first one to receive the plant habitat, but I've also committed to learning more, and so that we can do more as a community. And I think it's a small amount to pay for our biodiversity. It was my son's girlfriend, who is a graduate, her name's Dana, and it was her that introduced me to biodiversity, and a concept I really didn't understand, but I got a better understanding this morning when I was told that without these insects, I wouldn't have espresso. So gotta have my espresso. So yes, I was very serious about those 5 words being included. It's a symbol, shows the residents that I'm very serious, and I want to lead by example, and I hope that everybody follows. I'd be ecstatic if all 200 habitats could be created around August 22nd when we make this proclamation. Thank you.
So Mr. Mayor, I have the time, but I want to say that I certainly appreciate the mover convictions, and like you, I actually have been drinking espresso for a long time, but I like to have a good quality coffee. So, but perhaps I just want to, on a serious note, perhaps Mr. Mayor like to maybe get the comments from the clerk. As I said, I do seriously, honestly appreciate the mover's conviction, but for council of 9 of us, when it is passed, who's that first one being me? Maybe through Mr. Mayor to the clerk, what his suggestion or views on whether this motion would be, assuming if the majority adopted it, how it could be interpreted through you, Mr. Chair, to Mr. Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, maybe I can answer Councillor Chan. Happy to change that to the first one being myself, Deputy Mayor Pirelli, just for clarity.
Moving on, please.
So I'd like to hear our esteemed clerk for the proper wording, because when it was adopted eventually, let's say by majority council, who's me?
To you, suggestion for the change, Councillor Chan.
Okay.
No, I just want an interpretation from the clerk, because when it's adopted in the end, it's not from one person, right?
We're waiting for.
So can I hear Mr. Clerk's comment for you, Mr. Chair?
Yes, we're waiting for him to answer you, sir.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I do apologize. I did receive this last minute. I would have normally have actually changed that to make the intent before I put it on the screen. As you'll now see, I did correct it with the clear intent of the language. I apologize. I copied and pasted this from an email pretty quickly. I've now updated the for me to reflect the clear intent of the amendment.
Okay. There we go.
Okay. Yeah, so now it's clear who's me. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, recorded vote at the appropriate time, please.
I think that's right about now. Quarter vote to council for the amendment.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, voting on the amendment, Regional and Local Councillor Pirelli,
Yes.
Councillor Silovitz,
Yes.
Councillor Barros,
Yes.
Councillor Munch,
Yes.
Mayor Barrow,
Yes.
Councillor West,
Yes.
Councillor Liu,
Yes.
Regional and Local Councillor DePaula,
Yes.
and Councillor Chan.
Yes.
That amendment carries unanimously.
Okay, so we'll move back to the motion as amended. If we can get that before us.
Record the vote again for this, please.
Okay.
Just apologize. I've got to copy and paste over. Am I calling the vote, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, calling the vote.
Thank you. Through Mr. Mayor, voting on the main motion as amended, Councillor Silovitz,
Yes.
Regional Local Councillor DePaula,
Yes.
Councillor Chan,
Yes.
Councillor West,
Yes.
Councillor Munch,
Yes.
Mayor Barrow,
Yes.
Councillor Liu,
Yes.
Councillor Barros,
Yes.
and Regional Local Councillor Pirelli.
Yes.
The main motion as amended carries unanimously.
Thank you. So this brings us to the adjournment of our council meeting. And I want to remind everybody that we do have a electronic special council meeting this afternoon. I'm going to suggest it is now 11 a.m. I'm not sure how everybody feels. Do you want to do it at noon? Do you want to do it before, after, or whatever the case may be? Just give me a sense.
Can we do it
Let's
now?
do it at 11:30, Mr. Mayor.
Do it now.
Do it now.
I think everybody needs some kind of a walk out, walk back bake. If you don't
How
mind.
about 11:15, Mr. Mayor?
Okay, that's fine. Are we okay with that from Mr. Clerk? Get it back in place?
Yes, we can, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
Okay, 11:15.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Get a
Do
motion.
you need a motion to adjourn?
Confirming bylaw first, Mr. Mayor, please, and then a motion to adjourn.
Okay. Mover and seconder for,
Pirelli?
Barrows.
okay. All in favor? Opposed, carried, and then adjournment.
Same move.
Pirelli? Barrett?
Seconder, all the same. Unanimous. Thank you all. See you in
So
15.
what time are we back? 11:15?
Yes.